Welcome to Building a Woodland Elf House, Part 3. Thank you for being here. Okay, so here's the house the way it stands right now. So I'm going to go through a few little projects that I've done to get it to this stage. Take a look. I've made a hole here for the smokestack to come out the ceiling, and I've also glued in the little loft area. It's very difficult. It's going to be difficult to look at, but that's okay. It'll be fun knowing there's a bed and a table for a little creature that's going to sleep up there every night. Anyway, like I said, I made the hole for the smokestack, and I decided to use a piece of just copy paper, and I'm going to quill it. And I made it large enough to go through the hole and stick out into the little house and also stick up above the house. So I began this by just rolling it around something round to get this shape. You see it's trying to go into the circular shape. And then I just started working with it to get it in to the size that I want. I am going to use the whole piece of paper. Oh, it's going to be a good thickness in my opinion. It's kind of hard to work with when it's rounded. Okay, so you see I can tell it's too big. So I'll just pull it a little tighter. It the hole here, and oh boy, it just almost fits. It needs to be just a little bit tighter. So I take a mental note with my eyes about how big that is, because I'm going to have to unroll it a little bit. I can pull it just a tad tighter. I think this might fit. Let's check. Okay, so it's sticking out just a bit and sticking into the little cabin just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and glue it together so that it holds, and I will also glue it in place, and then we can make some pipes coming down and going up. Okay, I've cut 3 little lengths that don't go all the way around the tube, but it'll look like it goes all the way around, I think. We'll see. I'm going to let that dry, and then okay, working on the pebbles first to get the pebble floor, and I'm just cutting some small stone shaped pieces of the chipboard, and I honestly just sat and did this and actually went out to the TV and cut some more out there. Actually just cut them all, setting them aside. They all kind of about the shape and size of a bean. I wanted them all to be different, so I didn't use any kind of pattern. And then I set about placing them onto the floor and then gluing them in place once I was happy with the placement. So just fitting the last few in place here. And I did cut an edge so that it looks like I had to cut a stone or get one with a flat edge, just put right on the edge. And then we've got a cute little stone floor. So I painted it gray, just a typical gray craft paint, and just kind of scrubbing all around to get the gray in all the nooks and crannies. And then here I'm dry brushing it with the white paint to make some of the edges of the stones kind of be apparent. And then the gray bottom part will stay gray because I have a very light hand on the brush there, just dragging across very lightly. And then after I got done with the gray, with the white rather, on top of the gray, I started adding some browns in the corners and trying to make it look a little bit more worn in the corners. It looks like I'm still taking time with the white, but then here goes the brown. And just, you know, giving it a little bit of age and character and a little cozy place. And this was the end. Okay, I got the hinges made for the little door. And what I did was I quilled a little tube of paper for each of the two hinges, two little tubes, and then quilled another tube over a toothpick, a length of toothpick, and they're stuck onto the door like this. They are glued right on the edge of the door and also on the back. And then I put in place a little door stop here so the door can't be pushed in. And then, let me see if I can install the door for you. Just fits into the little toothpick fits in. Let me get a good angle on the camera, sorry. There we go. And they're not perfect, but hey, it works for this little door, this little house. Maybe I'll put a little latch on or something. I think it's okay. So, come on in. Okay, starting with the furniture that's going to go in the loft, which is the little bed that you saw me make earlier, and the mattress on the bed, and also the little table. So this is the pillow, and I've decided to glue these pieces of cardboard onto batting, give it a little bit of puff. So just kind of giving myself a sneak peek at the bedding. And these are lengths of that green and the blue also you see rolled up there. They're lengths of grosgrain ribbon. So I'm just making a little quilt long enough to fit. And just trimming the corners for when I'm going to glue it all together. And setting that aside to dry. And then going to add put this mattress also on a piece of the batting to give it a little bit of puff. So just using craft glue all over and setting it on the batting to dry. Put a small weight on it. And then as far as the bed on the table, I'm going to paint them. And you might notice that these are extremely bright colors, the blue and the green and this orange. I am putting a dab of the brown paint in the orange, but I want the colors to be extremely bright in the loft because it's going to be difficult to see it. You only will be able to peer in through the windows, and the interior walls are a pale yellow, and I'm going to have fairy lights in the house, so you should be able to see it, but I feel like those super bright colors will help a lot. And here I'm painting both sides of the table, both the top and the bottom. Because of warping, I want everything to sort of dry at the same time. And just painting the bed, the parts of the bed that'll show mostly, including the little wooden feet. And then I had put a little support brace on the bottom of the bed. That's what that X is. It's just a little bit of the cardstock to keep the bed from bowing down in the middle. And once the paint is dry and the batting is dry, I can trim the batting away. And getting excited to make the little pillow, and using this bright blue grosgrain ribbon, which was kind of neat. It just worked out that it was the same size as the pillow I had cut. I was really happy about that. So just adding a little bit of glue to the edges of the ribbon and trying to pinch the fabric around the edge of that cardboard with the batting on it. So these tiny clothespins came in handy, and I used a lot of them. And just set it aside to dry. And then working on the mattress next. The mattress has been trimmed, just like the batting has been trimmed away, and here it looks like I need to trim just a little bit more away. And then going to fit the little bedding on top. And just putting the glue on the very back and using the precision hot glue gun. So just a tiny bit of glue, but it's going to grab quickly. And that's the nice thing about the hot glue. You do have to be careful. And just folding the edges over and gluing only on the back, so that there are hopefully no glue marks showing on the front or top of the bed when I get done. So once I got all the corners folded and everything, you see I've got a little bit of batting sticking out at the top there, and I thought, well, maybe the pillow will cover it up. And I decided to go ahead and glue it to the bed. So I was committed. And finally, ready for the reveal of the pillow, I took off all the clips. The glue was finally dry, and just admiring, checking for which side is puffy and sticking it in place. And then unfortunately, I can still see that batting. So I did grab a piece of cream colored ribbon, and I thought that'll look like the sheet, look like the bed is turned down a little bit. So I am going to put one additional piece of ribbon here, and just using the hot glue to stick it in place on the batting itself and also on the very edge of the bed, and using the tweezers to attach, just to press that ribbon into. And then I liked the pillow. I was happy with the result. Went ahead and glued the pillow in place. And there you have the cute little pieces of furniture. Now this is the candle. It's made from paper. It's a 1/4 inch paper punch, and then a quilled piece of paper and a length of toothpick. And then the handle is another quilled circle, and the flame is made from a flake of wood that came off the toothpick when I was cutting it. This is a small ladder for the Woodland Elf House, to whoever lives there, to climb this ladder up to the loft. So I've just used chipboard, and each step is 2 layers of chipboard. The bottom step is 4 layers, just like the sides are. And I've glued them in, let them dry, and put a little sort of a support drip of glue on the bottom edges of each step. And I'm just coating, you see how you can see the different layers. I'm just coating the layers with a little coat of glue to unite them, make them a little bit smoother. Once I paint them, you won't be able to tell, hopefully. And it was extremely fiddly work. It is so tiny. So what I did was I glued the bottom one to the side first, then glued a couple more just to one side. And once they were slightly tacky, starting to stick, I glued the other edges of just a few steps, like 4 steps. And then I was able to, I made little marks on the ladder. They're each a 1/2 inch apart, which in 1/24 scale is they're a foot apart. So they're pretty good steps, but I think it's okay to fudge that just a little bit when you're looking inside my little elf house. Anyhow, so with the marks, I was able to attach each of the remaining steps, and I did not attach the second side. Just the bottom 4 were attached on both sides, and let it dry overnight. So it was attached really well. Then could come in the morning and put glue on each of the marks and line the steps up correctly. So they've been drying for about an hour now, and then I've gone and done this. I haven't picked it up yet. I've just left it down on the mat. I have moved it around so it won't stick, hopefully, and just wanting it to be a little bit more secure. I did go through this morning and put another dab of glue on the bottom edge of each step, each side of each step. So just to hopefully adhere it and give it a little support. And we'll see how this goes once it dries. Tip it up on edge so we can see the loft in there. Let me put it this way. We can see the loft in there. And the ladder, I wanted to test the ladder for length, and I see here, if it goes straight up, it's just too long. And then I thought about putting it all the way over here, but the steps are actually straight, if you notice. So I'm gonna just set it off just a little bit, but I'm gonna have to trim the top because it's hitting that roof line there. And so you see, if I put it, I set it just at a slight angle, it's still poking out the bottom here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off the top step and the part that extends beyond the top step, and I'll check it again. Now let's check the fit again. So it doesn't hit the ceiling until I get all the way there, and then you see it's not all the way to the bottom. So I do want to have it all the way to the bottom, but when I set it on its base, there's a lip. So I don't want that ladder to get hung up on this lip. So I'm going to need to offset it just a little bit. Actually, I think I'm going to paint the inside of the house first. I'm going to probably give it a coat of gesso, and then I'm going to go with a pale yellow color just to give it a nice glow when we do put some lights in it. And I'm adding some little chunks of the chipboard there on the ladder to hold the ladder out away from the wall, but I'll be able to attach the ladder to the wall because I felt like glue on just the top of the ladder wouldn't be enough. I don't want it flopping around and coming undone later. So that's why I put those lengths in there. And here I'm pointing to the lengths, the little pieces of cardboard. Okay, back to the stove pipe. When I was painting inside, the stove pipe, as it was hanging down into the little house, it was very wiggly and it was making me really nervous. So I decided to glue it some more. I added more glue up where it connects to the pipe near the ceiling, but I also added this strip of paper so that I could make sort of a brace to hold it away from the loft, but also hold it more still. There, I've got the clip on just so that it'll glue, and then I'm made my own hole reinforcer. You remember those? Or I just punched a hole and then I punched a bigger hole around that hole. Anyway, I fed the ends of the strip through the hole and then splayed them out, one direction, one the other direction, and glued it to the roof there. And then I coated the strip in glue to stiffen it and painted it black to match the stovepipe. And then I set about trying to line up exactly where to install the stovepipe on the stove itself on the floor of the little house. And I went back and forth trimming and resetting and trimming the pipe and trying to get it back. And after many tries, and here I'm making a mark where to attach it to the floor. And I actually did glue it down this one time and it still didn't fit. And I was getting very frustrated. I was trying different things. I had made a cone that set up on top of this pipe, and I made a cone at the bottom of the other pipe that comes down from the ceiling. And ultimately, I just was having so much trouble getting it lined up. When the house is completed and I'm trying to show people what kind of frustration that is going to be in the moment. And so after many trials and attempts, I decided to remove the stove from the floor and just put it in place with a little bit of tacky wax, and the pipes actually do not connect. So it's sort of a flub, but I gave up. That thing won. But I did make a cone and attached it to a strip of chipboard that comes up from, I glued the two ends inside the chimney, and I glued the little pyramid cone on top of that. Here I'm working on the roofing, and it's just a series of torn pieces of paper, which was just packaging material that I had inside an Amazon box that I received, and actually crumpled it back again to get more even crumpling, if that's even a thing, and then straightened it out with my hands and tore these little leaf shaped pieces, which I was trying to attach in a fashion to make it look like, sort of like tiles, but also maybe like leaves. And you notice that the house is a white color, and that is a mixture that I painted onto the house that I learned from Ara Bentley at Bentley House Minis. It's a mixture of half glue, Elmer's school glue, and half joint compound. And it did a beautiful job of stiffening up the house, as well as that is what I'm using to attach those little pieces of paper on the roofing. Now, once I got going on the roof, I went to turn it over and I realized, oh, I haven't even addressed the eaves. So I cut little tiny pieces of chipboard, and they're not even on purpose because I wanted it to look just hand done, which it is, but I wanted it to look as though an elf had built it. I don't know what that's supposed to look like, but in my mind's eye, I suppose the pieces aren't all perfect, or maybe they're purposely not perfect. So I took to just adding some craft glue and then placing each piece, and this took a long time to do. But in the end, it was very rewarding. I'm really happy with how it turned out. And I've got a little sped up portion here just for entertainment purposes. I really wish it had gone this quickly. But anyway, after I placed all the pieces, I did trim with scissors along the edge of the roof, which was tricky on the side that I've already put the roofing, because here's the sped up portion just for entertainment purposes. I wish it had gone this fast, but it didn't. But it looks great in the end. And even the corners, I'm very proud of the corners. Even the corners look good. Window frames on the inside of the little elf house. So I have a little size guide right here in front of me. So that one's not going to work for that, but it would work for this smaller window up in the loft. So I'll save that. And then, okay, I can use this one. This will work for the round window. And I need one more. And I had decided that I don't want a lot of dust getting in the house, because I've seen other miniature house makers. I don't feel any of the other thin ones. That's what I'm doing. Just feeling around for a particularly thin piece. Oh, this might be one. Nope. Enough for both. Yeah, I think that's long enough for both. So I'll get both of them out of this one piece of plastic. Put the rest of my scraps away for another day. So I'm going to start gluing these together, and then we'll glue them on the inside of the house. Okay, so all the window panes are attached. So I just need to trim them to be the shape of these windows, and then we're going to attach them on the inside of the house. In the meantime, I can show you, I made a couple of little shelves that are going to hang on the wall underneath the windows on the bottom part of the house. And it is starting to warp, so I'm going to paint the other sides. I get paint, wet paint on both sides. This is 2 layers of chipboard material. So hopefully that'll help me in the warping department. Finish getting this first layer of paint on. I'll probably just do, I won't do another full layer, but I'll probably just do a dry brushing to make it look wood. I want them to dry with the wall part toward the wax paper. I'm going to finish cutting away the plastic now. And this is how I cut the others as well. So they are totally plastic on the back. Let me see if I can get a good, yeah, you can see there in the reflection of the light. So I'm going to probably try to use some of E6000 to attach on the inside of this loft window. So it's very tight fit up in there. I've checked to make sure the window frame itself will fit, but now I'm going to attempt to work with this. I've worked with it on other projects, but usually I can deal with the amount of E6000 is like tiny, but in this case we're working in miniature. So I'm going to use a toothpick to apply. And if you notice, the E6000 is already oozing out of the bottle. I did not squeeze it at all. So just gonna get a tiny amount and twist my, so I'm deciding which is the top. I'm holding just the plastic, and then I'm just setting it where I want it, and then I'm actually rolling the toothpick on, and that's how I'm applying this glue. So we've gotten it glued, gotten it applied, but now we have a window in the upstairs. I'm so happy. Okay, so we'll move on to the next one. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and place the little shelves in place. And I'm going to put a little tinge of this E6000 because it's a gummy glue. And it dries pretty quick, I noticed, when I was installing the windows. So I'm going to go ahead and put just a little bit of that. And then also some of the tacky glue. Okay. I'm gonna press it to get that tacky, get that E6000 to squish and engage. Yay! And then I'll install the one on the other side. Okay, don't know if you noticed, while I was making all the window frames, I forgot all about this back wall directly opposite the front door. So I went ahead and took the time to make that one, and I've got both side windows with the shelves, and that back window, and the loft window, and the round window. So there really were 5 windows. Thank you so much for watching part 3. Part 4 will be coming soon.